very good evening and a warm welcome to Personal Finance. I am Kukuletu Cele. Now, education costs are expected to cane the salaries of expecting parents. That says Chris Pretorius, wealth manager at Alpha Wealth, says the cost estimates for quality school education ranges between 1 million rand and 7.7 million rand for a newborn. Chris joins us now in studio, as well as certified financial planner Sydney Sekese. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming through today. I am not a parent, but Chris, fortunately, you've had your first one on my behalf, and you've done the calculations as well with regard to education, and it's very frightening. That range that we just discussed at the introduction of the show, 1 million to 7.7, very hectic reality for any new parent to deal with. No,
absolutely. Yeah, the costs, unfortunately, they are what they are. You know, it's when doing the calculations, it's a simple, estimating the future value. And unfortunately, when it comes to school fees, it's a negative compounding. They always say the power of compounding, but in this case, it's working against you instead of for you.
Sydney, before you give us your perspective on this, let's get clarity as to which particular schools you're looking at here, the quality of the education, and have you taken any other costs into consideration with regard to these calculations?
So we started off, because I work for Alpha Wealth, and generally we work for the high-end clients, and so we started with the very expensive schools. Our school, in my opinion, I just took the best that I could think of, Michaelis and Hilton, and I called them my Ivy League schools, and that's where you get to your 7.7 million. Then I looked at what I call my top tier or very, very good private schools, being St. Stithians, St. John's, Bishops, St. David's, took the average of that, and that gets you to a fee of around 4.4. And then, of course, I looked at two government schools, just to put it into perspective. So I looked at Grey College Bloemfontein and King Edward here in Joburg, which gets you to your 1 million.
Exactly. Sydney, maybe if you can provide us with some perspective here. Obviously, different tiers that we're working with, but quite clearly, the better quality you want in life, the more money that you have to fork out for it. Are you finding that in your liaisons as well with the particular clients, that they are able to put the money that's necessary in the kitty here?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for that. I think most parents would want to leave a good legacy for their children, and education is quite key, top priority for most parents. And the different costs is as a result of inflation, and research has shown that inflation on education is almost 10%, almost double the normal inflation. So that's why those escalating costs that my colleague Chris has mentioned. And again, can I also lighten the topic a little bit? Most parents, as young as they are, they're usually dinky. They're called double income, no kids yet. As soon as kids arrive, you need to regard your child as a second bond. If you've got a housing bond, your first child is a second bond. Why do I call it a bond? I mean, it's like a 23-year lifespan. You need to get them from school up to varsity. So regard your child as a second bond, and with the love again.
So I fall into the dinky category quite clearly, but this reality about raising kids and this second bond that one needs to take up, does it raise new avenues and new thought process when it comes to investing in the appropriate savings or investment vehicles to have the required sum of money? Because putting your money in the bank or in a money market account just isn't going to cut it now, Sydney.
True. I think it's all about the time, and obviously the 23 means you need to start early. As a parent, start as soon as thinking about bringing someone to earth, think about the future. And as you said, the appropriate capital growth strategies like investing in shares will really, over those 23 years, provide the required capital at the time of need.
Chris, I'm sure you agree, and is equities the main place to be playing here?
Well, look, I think equities is definitely one of them. There's a whole bunch of options, but you have to start early and you have to be aggressive. If we're talking 10% return in the current environment, the only place you've got a chance of getting that, I would say, is the equity market.
So tell us about the kind of products, because you mentioned that you deal with your high-end clients. What are the rich doing that we, further down the list, can also copy from them?
So we tend to be a bit more alternative in a lot of our investments. So our flagship product is called the Alpha Equity Hedge, and it invests in it's a fund of funds of hedge funds. So the beauty of hedge funds, in South Africa we're blessed with some of the best fund managers and hedge fund managers, and they've been able to outperform the market, but at a significantly reduced risk. And given where we are currently, so we put it into perspective, the equity hedge, our flagship product, has been able to outperform the JSE by roughly 2%. But when we talk about risk, we talk about standard deviation. And it's been able to do that at half the risk. And that's what we're looking at. So I think when I say you have to be aggressive, I think you have to get advice, because when we're taking a market at a 20 PE multiple, the risks historically says that it's not in your favor.
Exactly.
So there are alternatives where guys have been able to outperform the market, even in bad times to do well. So that's why we tend to look at more alternative type of solutions as well.
And Sydney, is that the way forward for parents who want to beef up their education savings for their children, to speak to individuals like yourself and get more clarity? Because I understand hedge funds as well will now also be available to retail investors, if I'm not mistaken, with the new regulation coming in.
It's in process. You know, these things, when they say they happen and when they actually do happen, are not quite the same thing. So we'll just wait and see. But yes, they are becoming a lot more mainstream. And I think they're also a very misunderstood asset class. You know, you don't hear about good news, you only hear about the bad news. And this is where it's very dangerous, in my opinion, for an individual just to go buy a hedge fund.
Exactly.
Because you get hedge funds and hedge funds. You need to know what you're buying. You get the conservative ones that have got a mandate to say only geared two times. But I can show you hedge funds that are 70 times geared. Those are the ones that can blow up in your face. And you need to get proper advice as to know what you're buying. But obviously when it becomes more mainstream, I think the regulations will take care of that. A large part of those, call it outliers, and also take away the negative associations with it.
So quite clearly we need to wait for that news flow to come through, as you've alluded to. But Sydney, I want to get your perspective. Yes. So often parents have always heard about education plans, putting away, what, 600 Rand a month for a certain extended period of time. Clearly, is that still an option available to parents, given the cost that we just discussed now about education, or should they look at something else?
Yeah, thanks. I think the greatest risk, if you have a discretionary savings plan, is that you might want to tap into those funds and you really disturb the flow of your cash. Sometimes you've got emergency and you are tempted to tap into those. So there are some contractual policies in the market. I know one that has launched some 6-7 years ago is Fundisa, where government actually gives you a bonus on the contribution that you've made, but you need to contribute 200 rands every month for 12 months to get up to 600 rands from government to compensate for that. And it's really geared towards a particular child's education up to matric, and once they want to go into tertiary, you can use those funds. And we can also look at RSA retail bonds, which is also contractual. You won't be tempted to tap into that. So again, a certified financial planner can assist in recommending the appropriate vehicle to use by looking at the holistic financial plan, instead of, again, buying a hedge fund just for the sake of getting the growth that you want.
If I could just, those products are fantastic, but I think often people end up buying I'm going to buy an education plan for my kid. This is what's on the shelf, that's what I'm buying. Great, now it's 200 Rand a month, but you want to send your kid to King Edward's, which is going to cost you, actually, that's not even going to maybe cover your first 2 years. So don't just look at off the shelf, look at your requirements. And this is where advice becomes important. You know, there are a lot of products out there, but are you using them correctly? Like, there's nothing wrong with the product.
But it's your needs analysis that it boils
correct.
down to.
Are you putting away enough? Is your assumptions correct in what you want to achieve with that product? So, yeah, I 100% agree.
It can be a good start for those parents who are reluctant to enter into an arrangement where they take care of their kids' education. Sometimes they, because of lack of discipline, they might expend more than they earn, and then you find that they don't have any particular savings habit. So as a start, maybe not bad.
Yeah, it's one of the greatest risks. We can plan as well as we want, but if you draw from your savings account or overspend, you have to have some discipline.
Very much so.
Well, it's time for us to recap on the key takeaways from this particular discussion. For that dinkies like myself need to consider. I'm still away from having some children. But Chris, from your perspective, the key considerations that one needs to understand from this conversation with regard to the cost of education?
I think most importantly, be aware it's going to cost you a lot of money. second bond was a great example. And start early and be realistic. If you are going to want to send your kid to a particular school, the numbers are what they are, and plan appropriately. And I think from our point of view, you have to be aggressive in your investment approach. There's no point, as you said, money market is not going to help you at all. It's just going to waste your money, actually.
Sydney, from your perspective?
Yes, thanks. I think to complement what Chris has said, if you have a proper plan in place, those bigger numbers that he's mentioned, they're achievable. You can change that negative compounding into positive compounding, because if you invest in a capital growth investment vehicle, you can actually change that negative perception of the huge numbers that we saw.
And something else that you mentioned, which you alluded to a moment ago, Chris, was the fees involved, obviously, because you don't want the growth that you gain from whatever investment vehicle to be eaten away again by the products that you have. So that's also something to take into consideration, I presume? Yeah,
absolutely. I've always been a type of person. I look at the net result. If you give me a very big return, you can take a decent fee. If you give me a bad return and take a big fee, then I'm going to get upset.
Exactly. So quite clearly, that's where we leave it for today. Thank you so much for your time this evening, gentlemen. That's a big thank you to Chris Pretorius. He's a wealth manager at Alpha Wealth, and certified financial planner, Sydney Sekese. Well, do remember that we'd love to hear from you. So get in touch with us and share your thoughts and insights with us. You can tweet any of your comments to @CNBC Africa using the hashtag Finance410, or to myself @Kukumfupi on Twitter. Until next time, it's goodbye for now.